Imagine standing way up high, maybe on a mountain peak. The air's crisp, totally clear, and you can just see everything below you, sharp and distinct. You're completely untouched by all the chaos and noise down there.
Yeah, that sense of total calm and clarity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what if you could get that same feeling, that same kind of high-up, clear view, but mentally,
Yeah.
spiritually,
Yeah.
right here, right now, not just on a mountaintop?
That really is the goal, isn't it? Finding that inner quiet, that perspective that cuts through all the day-to-day churn.
Absolutely. And achieving that state is precisely what we're diving into today here on the Deep Dive. You know how we work. We take fascinating sources and pull out the most powerful insights for you.
And today's source is quite something. It's an ancient Buddhist teaching found in a document called 54 Buddhist Sayings on Heedfulness, or sometimes translated as non-negligence.
Right. And this was apparently delivered way back on November 21st, 2497 BE. That's quite old.
Very old. But the key thing is, it's not just some dusty historical text. It's presented almost like a practical guide, a really detailed map, actually.
A map for what, exactly?
A map for cultivating this inner state of, well, profound wisdom and this really deep tranquility, unshakable calm.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that. We're going to explore this core Buddhist idea, heedfulness, or non-negligence, and how it's shown as basically the key.
The key to rising above all that worldly agitation, the noise we mentioned, and reaching ultimate liberation, seeing reality with incredible clarity.
And there's a powerful analogy we'll get into, and then this really amazing step-by-step journey through different states of being laid out in the text.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. So let's start with that main idea, heedfulness. The original Pali word is appamada.
Appamada.
And sometimes the best way to understand something is to look at its opposite. The opposite is pamada, negligence.
Right. And how does the text define pamada?
It defines it pretty simply as, well, carelessness, absent-mindedness. It's that state where your mind wanders, you're prone to making mistakes, your focus isn't really there, lacking that consistent mindfulness.
Okay, so appamada, heedfulness, is the direct opposite. It's not just avoiding carelessness. It sounds like it's something more active.
Exactly. It's an active, sustained state, presence of mind, continuously. Think of it like constantly adjusting your mental compass, always bringing it back to true north, staying aware.
Catching yourself before you drift off, maybe, or noticing agitation without getting sucked in.
Precisely. It's that subtle, ongoing awareness. And here's where it gets really profound in this teaching. The Buddha apparently stated that out of all 84,000 Dharma aggregates,
Which is basically everything, right? All the teachings.
essentially, yes, everything in the Tripitaka, the monastic rules, the discourses, the higher philosophy, out of all of that, heedfulness, appamada, is considered the absolute peak.
The peak. Wow. So it's like the single point where all good qualities meet.
That's how it's presented. It's incredibly central. And the flip side is also stated. Negligence, pamada, is the sum total of all the bad stuff, all the unwholesome qualities.
So if you cultivate heedfulness, you're essentially cultivating everything good.
In a way, yes. It's positioned as the ultimate foundation. And the text uses that powerful analogy we mentioned right near the start to make this clear.
The mountain one.
Yes. It says something like, when the wise person, through heedfulness, overcomes negligence, they climb up to the high palace of wisdom. And from there, calm and untroubled, they look down on the agitated, foolish masses below, just like someone on a mountain looking down at people on the flat ground.
That's a striking image. And it's not just poetry, you're saying. It describes a real internal shift.
Exactly. It's meant to describe an actual achieved state. This elevated view isn't just a nice idea. It's a state where you are genuinely free from that inner turmoil, that agitation. You can witness the world's difficulties without being pulled down by them.
Like breaking through the clouds, maybe, and seeing the sun.
That's a good way to put it. And the text then lays out this very precise step-by-step climb, an ascent through different bodies or states of being, each one more subtle, more refined than the last.
And reaching each new stage depends on cultivating this heedfulness.
Entirely. It's a spiritual ascent, and with each step up, your perception gets clearer, sharper, like gaining altitude and seeing further.
How does that work, this progression?
The idea is that the mind has to stop or settle right at the very center of the current state, the current body. And by doing that, settling completely, it allows the practitioner to perceive the next, more refined state. It's a continuous purification.
Okay, let's trace that journey. Where does it start?
Well, naturally, it starts with the human body, our ordinary coarse physical form. the one we all know.
Right, our starting point.
But from the perspective of the next stage up, this ordinary human body is seen pretty clearly as, well, prone to carelessness. It wanders off the path, it desires things, gets angry, holds wrong views. It's characterized by agitation.
So that's where the work begins, applying heedfulness right here in this body.
Exactly. By practicing diligently, settling the mind right at the core of this human sphere, you can kind of transcend that basic level of agitation and reach the subtle human body.
And from that perspective,
From there, the coarse body you just left behind looks agitated, looks careless. In this subtle state, you're actively working on virtues like generosity to counter greed, loving kindness to counter ill will. Your view becomes clearer, more wholesome.
okay, so it's a refinement. What comes next?
As that awareness deepens and the heedfulness becomes even more stable, more profound, you move beyond even that subtle human level.
Now,
Through sustained attention, focusing intensely on the center, the core of that subtle human body sphere. And then there's a process, moving meticulously through internal stages, Dhamma, precepts, concentration, wisdom, and so on, until you ascend to the celestial body.
a celestial body, what's that like?
It's described as a body existing in higher realms, sort of dreamlike maybe, with senses similar to ours but much, much more subtle.
But even from there, looking back,
Right, even from the celestial body, the subtle human body you just came from is still seen as having subtle forms of agitation. It shows how continuous this purification is. Each higher state reveals the lower one as still having some entanglement, some defilement.
it's relentless refinement.
It is, and this ascent continues, leading next to the even calmer, more refined, subtle celestial body.
Okay, so we've gone from coarse human to subtle human to celestial to subtle celestial. Where to next?
Building on that foundation, always powered by that unwavering heedfulness, the climb goes higher still to the form Brahma body.
Form Brahma. Sounds quite different.
It represents a significant leap. From this state, even the celestial body, which seemed subtle before, is now viewed as still kind of thick with defilements and maybe coarse in wisdom.
Why?
Because it's still prone to some level of negligence, some subtle agitation. The form Brahma body is much more stable, much less agitated.
It's like going from a lively city, even a nice one, to a really remote, silent monastery, perhaps?
That's a good analogy, yeah. And following the pattern, there's then the subtle form Brahma body. And from that state, the coarse form Brahma body is still seen as having some residual agitation. It just keeps getting finer and finer, driven by non-negligence.
This path just keeps unfolding.
It does, revealing even subtler states. As heedfulness deepens even more, the practitioner ascends to the formless Brahma body, and then its subtle counterpart, the subtle formless Brahma body.
And at each step, same principle. Looking back and seeing the previous state's subtle imperfections.
Exactly. No matter how subtle it seems, the newly attained state allows you to discern some residual negligence or agitation in the one before. It's this constant shedding of mental impurities through refined awareness.
Okay, this is quite a climb. Does it culminate somewhere fundamentally different?
Yes. This brings us to a really major breakthrough point in the journey described, attaining the Dharma body.
The Dharma body. That sounds significant.
It is. It's described as being fundamentally different. It's a body outside the realms. The term used is nakfa,
Outside the realms, meaning
meaning outside the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth that characterize ordinary existence. All those previous 8 bodies, we discussed the coarse and subtle versions of the human, celestial, form Brahma, and formless Brahma. They're all considered naifop, within the realms.
so they're still subject to suffering, to the
You're
cycle.
right. Still bound to that wheel of existence. Reaching the Dharma body marks a fundamental shift out of that.
And what's the perspective from the Dharma body?
From there, the text says you clearly see all those 8 previous bodies as caught up in what are called the 3 cycles. There's the cycle of action, kamavada, cause and effect.
Okay.
Then the cycle of defilements, kilesavada, things like greed, hatred, delusion, those unwholesome states.
Got it.
And finally, the cycle of results, vipakavada, the consequences that arise from the actions and defilements. You see how beings in those states are bound by craving, ill will, wrong views, lust, hatred, delusion.
Wow, that's a profound insight into how it all connects and traps us. And reaching the Dharma body means you've overcome those.
Definitively, yes. That's the claim. And it's achieved through diligent practice, generosity, keeping precepts, meditation, basically walking the Noble Eightfold Path.
Right, understanding right thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration,
Yeah.
the core path.
Exactly. And from the Dharma body, true wisdom, panya, arises.
What does that wisdom entail?
It means clearly seeing the true nature of all those previous bodies and indeed all conditioned phenomena, seeing them as impermanent, anicca,
Right, constantly changing.
seeing them as inherently unsatisfactory or subject to suffering, dukkha,
Dukkha, yes.
and seeing them as lacking any permanent independent self, anicca, non-self. This insight applies to their 5 aggregates too: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Everything is seen in this light.
That connects directly back to the foundational insights of Buddhism: impermanence, suffering, non-self.
Absolutely. The text even gives a physical dimension, strangely enough. It describes the Dharma body as being almost 5 was in diameter.
Wow, how big is that?
It's an old Thai unit of measurement, about 2 meters, so 5 was roughly 10 meters across. Quite large.
Interesting detail. So is the Dharma body the end point?
Not quite. The journey continues. The mind settles at the center of the Dharma body, and through that, one reaches the subtle Dharma body.
Even more refined.
Yes, but even here, the text points out, there are still subtle hindrances. It mentions the first 3 lower fetters.
Fetters, like chains.
Kind of, yeah, attachments that bind us to suffering. Specifically, self-view, the deep-seated belief in a permanent self. Then doubt, especially about the path, and clinging to rites and rituals as ends in themselves.
So even at this very advanced stage, there's still things to let go of.
Yes, the diligent practitioner, always using heedfulness, has to work to shed these subtle attachments.
Which leads to?
This brings us to the Sotapanna Dharma body, also described as 5 was in size. This state signifies having completely cut off those first 3 fetters.
Okay, a major step, but still not the end.
Still not the absolute end. From the Sotapanna state, one observes that subtle and even coarse forms of sensual desire and ill will still remain. So the purification continues, always driven by that consistent heedfulness.
It really is a continuous process.
Absolutely. Next, through even deeper heedfulness and internal focus, you reach the subtle Sotapanna Dharma body, working on refining those desires. Then another significant leap to the Sakadagami Dharma body.
Sakadagami. And this one?
This was bigger tenwa, about 20 meters, and then its subtle counterpart, the subtle Sakadagami Dharma body. At this stage, the coarse forms of sensual desire and ill will are gone, but the subtle forms are still there.
It's like polishing something finer and finer.
Exactly like that, polishing a gem until every tiny flaw is gone. The next major stage is the Anagami Dharma body, 15 wa now, so 30 meters.
Anagami. What's overcome here?
This body has completely transcended both coarse and subtle sensual desire and ill will. A huge step.
That sounds very close to the end goal.
Very close. But the text notes 5 more subtle fetters remain. Attachment to fine material existence. Form realms, ruparaga. Attachment to immaterial existence. Formless realms, aruparaga. Conceit, mana. Restlessness, udaka. And the root of ignorance, avijja.
Wow. Even at that incredibly advanced Anagami stage, there's still conceit, still ignorance.
According to this map, yes. Subtle forms, but still there. So there's the attainment of the subtle Anagami Dharma body, working on those last few defilements.
And then the final peak.
Yes, the ultimate culmination of this entire extraordinary journey, still powered every step of the way by unwavering heedfulness, is the Arahant Dharma body, 20 wa or 40 meters across.
The Arahant, this is liberation.
This is it, the peak of the mountain reached. At this ultimate stage, the practitioner fully realizes several key things. Kinasavo.
Right.
All defilements are utterly, completely extinguished.
Gone.
Katakaranyo. Everything that needed to be done for liberation has been completed. The work is finished.
Nothing left undone.
And Nati Punapavo. There will be no more future rebirth. The cycle is broken. This is ultimate liberation. All agitation ceases. Clarity is absolute.
The end of suffering.
And just for completeness, the text mentions one final refinement. The subtle Arahant Dharma body, the most subtle liberated state imaginable.
So that whole incredible ascent from our ordinary, agitated human experience all the way up to the fully liberated Arahant state, it's all driven by that one core principle: heedfulness.
That's the central message. That constant, unwavering presence of mind, non-negligence, is the engine driving the entire process.
It really brings that initial analogy full circle, doesn't it? The wise person on the mountain or in the
Yeah.
palace of wisdom.
Perfectly. Having climbed through these stages, shedding defilements layer by layer through continuous heedfulness, they stand serene, clear-sighted. They can observe the agitated world below but remain completely undisturbed, not pulled into the turmoil. It's a remarkable roadmap to inner freedom.
This deep dive really highlights how heedfulness is presented not just as being careful, but as this dynamic, sustained state of mindful awareness, non-negligence.
Right. It's shown as the singular force propelling the practitioner through all these increasingly refined states of consciousness from our coarse human body right up to the ultimate freedom of the Arahant Dharma body, shedding defilements, gaining wisdom at every step.
And that image of the wise person on the mountain, calm, seeing clearly, watching the agitation below without being caught, that's the result of maintaining this heedfulness continuously.
That's the outcome described, yes.
We saw how this ancient teaching calls heedfulness the peak of all teachings, the point where all good qualities converge. And it's the path to truly seeing reality as it is impermanent, unsatisfactory, non-self.
It's positioned as absolutely fundamental.
So here's something to think about, is cultivating this state of non-negligence, this active heedfulness, is presented as the ultimate path to genuine clarity and freedom from all that inner noise and agitation. What small shifts could you maybe start making in your own daily awareness? How could you begin your own ascent, even just the first step, towards that kind of elevated, unperturbed perspective?